It's very easy to see what we don't like about ourselves in other people. It's a little harder to see what we don't like about ourselves in the mirror. And sometimes other people can see things in us that we don't want to see in ourselves. And when that happens, our first reaction is, you're wrong, you're confused. When people tell us something we don't want to hear, our first reaction is, they're wrong and they're confused. Sometimes it's hard to look in that mirror and say, you know what, maybe I'm wrong and maybe I'm confused. What did I learn? Sometimes other people can see something in us we can't see in ourselves, and our first reaction is they're confused. A great challenge, learn to listen to other people. Hear what they have to say and recognize sometimes they can see something in us that we don't want to see in ourselves. Our monkey mind is in many ways like a monkey swinging through the vines in the jungle. You know, ding, 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 going from just thing to thing. And the internet provides amphetamines for the monkey mind. You know, you ever go online, you're going to look up something that's going to take 3 minutes. 3 hours later, you're still online. And it's very hard to kind of calm down the monkey mind. The more you measure things, the less likely you are to have this happen. And also, the more we admit we need help and structure. When you get over that macho, I can do everything on my own nonsense, life is better. So if you know, look, I'm going to go online. Let's look at my history here. I'm going to set the alarm clock off. So in 5 minutes, this alarm clock's going to go off, and I'm not going to be online anymore. Imagine you're 95, and you're just getting ready to die. And you're on that deathbed. Here comes your last breath. Right before you take that breath, you're given a beautiful gift. The ability to go back in time and talk to the person in this room. The ability to help this person be a better leader. More important, the ability to help this person have a better life. What advice would the wise 95-year-old you who knows what mattered in life and what didn't have for the you that's sitting here right now? You don't have to say anything or do anything. Just answer that question in your mind. Whatever you're thinking now, do that. Terms say performance appraisal, that's the only one that's going to matter. Some friends of mine interviewed old folks who are dying and asked them this question: what advice would you have? On the personal side, 3 themes. Theme number 1, 3 words: be happy now. Not next week, not next year, not next month. Be happy now. Great Western disease, I'll be happy when? When I get the money, the status, the BMW. We all have the same when. That old person is when. Learning point from old people, I got so wrapped up chasing what I did not have, I could not see what I did have, and I had everything. People in this room, many of you are among the luckiest humans who ever lived. Many of you have friends and family and health, and you're doing fun work and you're helping people. The great Western disease is, I will be happy when. When I get the money, the status, the BMW, the condominium, when I get this, I will be happy. Well, this is the great Western message, and it's supported by what I call the great Western art form. Now, what is the great Western art form? This is something you've seen in your life probably hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of times. It's always the same story. The story sounds like this. There is a person. The person is sad. They spend money. They buy a product and they become happy. This is called a commercial. Have you ever seen one of those before? The message is always the same. It's not in here, it's out there. I will be happy when. The reality is lottery winners have been studied to death, and when someone wins the lottery within 3 years, statistically, they're not much happier than they were to start with. What's been learned is happiness doesn't come from the outside. Most of happiness comes from the inside. Well, the great employee engagement myth is the employees will be engaged when? When we give them this program, when we do this process, they will be engaged when? Well, that's partially true. I mean, better leaders lead to more engagement, and better recognition leads to more engagement. The reality is also, though, a lot of employee engagement doesn't come from the outside. A lot of employee engagement comes from the inside. And one of the things that I'm going to talk about is, how do you create an environment where people take responsibility for their own engagement And instead of focusing on, I will be engaged when the company does something for me, take responsibility for their own engagement and say, I can engage myself. We spend an inordinate amount of time in life whining. Typically whining about decision makers, whining about decisions. I'm going to talk about 5 of my favorite whines. And then we'll talk about how many times you've heard these, and then look in the mirror and say, how many times have I done it myself? That first whine is called, it's not fair. It's not fair. The decision maker makes a decision and we conclude it's not fair. Decisions have nothing to do with fairness. Every decision is made by the person who has the power to make the decision. Not a fair person, right person, or logical person. It's made by that person. The decision maker is the customer, and our job is to influence the decision maker, not to just judge other people. As Peter Drucker said, our job in life is to make a positive difference, not prove we're right. Well, it's not fair. The kid comes home from school. Daddy, Mommy, I got a C on my report card. I should have gotten an A. It's not fair. A great learning experience for the child. Decisions aren't made based on fairness. You did not sell the teacher. The teacher was the decision maker. The teacher thought you should have gotten a C. You thought you should have made an A. Well, you didn't grade your own paper. The teacher graded the paper. You got a C. There's always a teacher. There's always a boss. There's always a customer. There's always somebody. And it's never really fair. Another common whine is, it's not smart. Yeah, they're doing that, and they think it's fair, but it's not smart. I have a much better idea, and the world would be better if they did it my way. Well, sometimes the world doesn't ask us how we want to do things, and we've got to do things that others do, and maybe their definition of smart is a little bit different than our definition of smart. And a favorite among engineers that's related to these two is, it's not logical. People with technical backgrounds, scientists, engineers, constantly look for logic where none exists, and then we're shocked because we can't find it. Now, I have a degree in mathematical economics. I went to an engineering school, so I include myself in this category. Too much of my life has been wasted looking for logic where none exists and being shocked when I can't find it. Well, decisions are not always made based on logic. Oftentimes, crazy people make decisions, and it's not logical. Sometimes we say, well, they think it's logical and they try to be fair. It's just the wrong decision. They mean well. It's just not right. It's not right. Well, again, we don't get to necessarily, as we wander through life, decide what is or isn't right. And our definition of right, well, might not be somebody else's. Another big favorite is, it's not their job. It's my job. It's not their job. It's my job. Believe it or not, I see this with a lot of CEOs I coach. Shockingly, I worked with a CEO of a private equity firm. Private equity, they own the company. I was hired by the owners. You know what he said? They can't tell me what to do. It's not their job. I'm the CEO. Shockingly, you'd be surprised how many people become brain dead when they become CEOs. I'm the CEO. They can't tell me what to do. I had to sit down and say, they own the company. It's their money. They can indeed tell you what to do. You see, you work for them. They do not work for you. I had another CEO had the same problem in a publicly traded company with his board. I had to sit down and say, excuse me, the board of directors, rightly or wrongly, represents the ownership of the company. The board does not report to you. You actually report to the board. Now, fortunately, in most cases, as a coach, I've been successful. I've had a failure. I had a failure where a person never really quite got it. Now, as we look at decision-making, realize one thing. Our job is to make a positive difference, not to go through life critiquing everybody else with our infinite wisdom and whining. And again, some of the favorite whines we've talked about, it's not right, it's not fair, it's not smart, it's not logical, it's not their job. We can go through life doing this all we want to. What are we accomplishing? Nothing. Simple guideline for life. Do more, whine less. Take all the effort you might have spent on whining and complaining about other people and focus on making a positive difference. Try to influence those other people. Don't waste so much time judging, critiquing, and whining. One of the greatest thinkers in the history of leadership development is a hero of mine, a man named Dr. Warren Bennis. Now, Warren Bennis is a wonderful guy, a guy who's helped me have a better life, and is someone I've always looked up to. Warren told a story once I'll always remember. For a while, he was president of the University of Cincinnati, and he's not sure he wanted to be president for all the right reasons. He was president, and he was giving a talk in front of a group of people, and one gentleman raised his hand, and he said, "Dr. Bennis, do you love what you do? Do you love being president?" And Warren said he stopped, and there was almost a minute of silence. Eventually, he looked at this person and said, "I don't know." Well, that moment kind of changed his career. He realized maybe he wasn't being the president for the right reasons, things like status, ego, feeling important. Maybe those kicked in over things like doing what I love doing and doing what's in my heart. Well, I thought a lot about Warren Bennis' example. Do you love what you do? In the old days, if you didn't love what you do, it wasn't so bad. For example, in 1979, IBM was my biggest customer. IBM was the most admired company in the world. They were the God company. In 1979, I could go to Armonk, New York, shoot a cannonball down the hall at 5 o'clock and hit almost nobody. These people worked 35, 40 hours a week, and they took 5 weeks of real vacation. I recently talked to the chief learning officer at IBM, and I said, I bet those same people in that same building now work 60 hours a week. He said, wrong, 70 hours a week. And by the way, there's almost no real vacation. When you take the cell phone with you, when you take the computer with you, when you go on that vacation, you're constantly wired in, there's almost no real vacation. Very important point for young people today. Very important point. If you can work 35 or 40 hours a week and take 5 weeks of real vacation and you don't love what you do, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. Kind of like a half-time job anyway. If you're working 70 hours a week and you get no weeks of real vacation and you do not love what you do, you're living in a bad place called New Age professional hell. And too many people are living there today. Very important challenge for people at all ages, especially young people. Realize you're probably going to have to commit to your job. Realize you're probably going to be working many hours. Realize your occupation is going to be a large part of your life. Go back to that great question, do you love what you do? And to the degree you can answer that question, yes, you're probably going to be a winner in the game of life. To the degree you can answer that question, no, you're going to have some problems. I have done programs myself called Creating a Great Rest of Your Life. In this very room with many CEOs, my friend Alan Mulally, CEO of Ford, has been in this room. Mike Duke, CEO of Walmart, has been in this room. Many top leaders have been in this room, and we've talked about what are you going to do now? These are typically people my age, older people in 60s, maybe early 70s, and talking about what are you going to do with the rest of your life? And really what I've learned is the concept of playing crappy golf with old men at the country club while eating chicken salad sandwiches and discussing gallbladder surgery may not be quite as wonderful as it sounds, especially if you've had a meaningful life. And we talk about what matters in life, really what matters. And what we've come up with, a couple of things. One is you have to be happy at what you're doing. You want to love the process of what you're doing. You don't want to be a victim or a martyr. And you also need to find meaning. You can't just go on cruises and play bad golf. You have to do something that matters in life. And so I think it is very important at every stage of life we go back and look at what's important, what matters, and what do I want to be. We spend so little time thinking about this. One of my good coaching clients was going to retire in 6 months. He was a CEO of a huge company. And I said, if you knew the company were going to change in 6 months, totally different customers, everything, would you plan for it? He said, of course I would. I'm the responsible person. I'm the CEO. I said, your life is going to change in 6 months. Totally change. Everything's going to be different. How much time have you spent planning for that? You know, he said, none. Big mistake.
Right.
Big mistake. So I think it's very important as we go through various stages of life to reflect and think back what matters in life, what's important. And I don't feel any of us are too young or old to kind of begin this process. Creating a new identity. How can we become someone different? How can we create a new identity? Now, the final element of our identity, if you look at our model, is called our created identity. That's that new person that we can create. That's the future that we create for ourselves. And in looking at this element of identity, I'm going to give you an example from a famous rock star. One night I had the opportunity of having dinner with a famous rock and roll star, Bono. And I didn't know any of his music too much because it was recorded after 1975. We had a wonderful dinner though, and he talked about, not his music, he talked about a lot about his identity. And the first part of his identity was kind of regular guy, not pompous or pretentious, very much a regular person. And you know, he impressed me as being very much a regular guy, didn't put on airs, just seemed to be a real person. He used the F word about every third word when we were talking, and he's a nice man. He apologized. He said, you know, sir, I probably shouldn't use such bad language around you. I said, excuse me, I'm from Valley Station, Kentucky. I thought the F word was the adjective that preceded all nouns. So I said, this really doesn't bother me that much. Well, after regular guy, the next part of his identity was rock and roll fan. He's still a fan of music, and he talked about the groups he loved and how they influenced his life. Then he became a musician. He's still a musician. He talked about how he loved making music, and not just for money, how he had times with his family and they'd all sing and make music together and how much he enjoyed that. Then he became a rock star, and he talked about what it's like to be a rock star. And he wasn't bragging or showing off. That's who he is. He's a rock star. He talked about the pluses and minuses of that life. And now he's humanitarian. He is devoting a whole lot of his life to trying to help others. And he made an interesting point. Not so easy. Everybody didn't support him in trying to be a humanitarian. Some people were more into like, well, who is this guy? He's shallow, he's plastic, some rock star. What's he trying to be, some kind of humanitarian? And to his credit, you know what he said to himself? Forget that. If I want to help people, I shouldn't have to apologize or be ashamed of it. And he is devoting a huge amount of his life right now to helping others. Well, to me, God bless him. He has created a new identity for himself without being a hypocrite and without being a phony. Final point for you, challenge yourself. Think about, what is my identity now? Second, where did that identity come from? My memories? Feedback from others? Programming? What is the new person I want to create? How can I create a new identity? A different person, a better person, a person who's not the same as the person who's there now, without being a hypocrite, without being a phony, creating a better me.